An ancient book defies every attempt to read it. This is the Voynich Manuscript, a centuries-old puzzle that has resisted code breakers, scholars, and artificial intelligence. By the end of this, you will understand the full story of this enigmatic book and the latest, most credible attempts to unlock its meaning. We will explore its bizarre illustrations of impossible plants and mysterious bathing figures. We will investigate if it is a lost language, an elaborate hoax, or something else entirely. What do you believe is the ultimate purpose of a secret that refuses to be told? The book itself is a small, unassuming object you could easily hold in your hands, crafted from fragile vellum, a fine parchment made from animal skin. Its roughly 240 pages are filled with a script that looks like writing but communicates nothing we can understand. This is not a grand, oversized tome. It is a personal, handheld volume which makes its impenetrable content all the more intimate and strange. The text flows in a neat, cursive hand, organized into short paragraphs that give it the appearance of a scientific manual or an herbal guide. But its illustrations immediately shatter any sense of the familiar. Whole sections are dedicated to botanical drawings of plants that have never grown on Earth. You see leaves with impossible spirals, roots that form intricate knots, and flowers with petals arranged in geometrically perfect patterns found nowhere in nature. These are not mere fantasies. They are rendered with such precise clinical detail that they feel like entries in a biologist's field guide to an alien world. Then the pages shift to astronomy, presenting circular diagrams of celestial bodies with suns, moons, and stars in configurations that do not match any known sky. Other sections are even more intimate, showing numerous nude female figures, often posed in complex networks of pipes and barrels, as if bathing in or connected to some strange liquid system. These bathing women are not depicted in a classical or artistic manner. They are diagrammatic, almost anatomical, adding to the overwhelming sense that this book was meant to document something very real and specific to its author. Every element, from the binding to the ink, feels purposefully created. So what could possibly link these unreadable words, these impossible plants, these foreign stars, and these schematic women? The mystery is not just in the code, it is in the very purpose of the object you are looking at. This book of secrets might have remained forever lost if not for a single collector's obsession. Its modern story begins in 1912 with a man named Wilfrid Voynich, an antique book dealer with a sharp eye for the unusual. Voynich discovered the manuscript in a chest at the Jesuit College of Mondragon, just outside Rome. He was not merely browsing, he was on a deliberate treasure hunt, and he knew he had found something extraordinary. He purchased the book, and from that moment his name became permanently attached to its mystery. But the trail of ownership does not start with him. It stretches back into a fog of centuries, a fragile chain of possession we can only partially reconstruct. The first solid clue comes from a letter found tucked within the manuscript's pages, a letter dated 1666. It was written by the rector of Charles University in Prague, who claimed the book had once belonged to the Holy Roman Emperor Rudolf II of Bohemia. Rudolf was a fascinating figure, a man less interested in ruling his empire and more consumed by a passion for the occult, for alchemy, and for any object that promised hidden knowledge. The story goes that he purchased the manuscript for a staggering sum of 600 gold ducats, believing it to be the work of the 13th century friar and alchemist Roger Bacon. This belief immediately frames the book not as a curiosity but as a text of immense perceived power. Another name surfaces from the past, literally inscribed on the first page. With the help of ultraviolet light, modern researchers deciphered a faded signature that reads Jacques de Tepenec. This was the court herbalist to Rudolf II, a man deeply involved in the same world of esoteric science that fascinated the emperor. His ownership places the book squarely within Rudolf's inner circle of scholars and mystics. Yet how the book traveled from Rudolf's castle in Prague to that Italian chest where Voynich found it remains a gap in history we cannot fill. Each of these owners, from the eccentric emperor to the scholarly herbalist, saw something in these pages they found profoundly valuable. They were convinced they held a key to a great secret. But what did they believe they were holding, and why, across so many generations, has that secret remained so perfectly locked away? That elegant, flowing script is the very heart of the mystery. Your eye follows its neat, cursive lines, each character meticulously formed. It looks so much like a real alphabet that your brain insists it must mean something. There are what appear to be individual letters grouped into words, and those words arranged into short, tidy paragraphs that look like entries in a diary or a scientist's logbook. The script uses between 20 and 30 distinct characters, some reminiscent of Latin letters, others of Arabic numerals, but they form an alphabet belonging to no known civilization. This is not a simple substitution cipher where one symbol stands for one English letter. If it were, someone would have cracked it centuries ago. The structure of the text itself reveals something even more baffling. When linguists analyze the statistical patterns of the writing, it behaves almost exactly like a genuine, natural language. The words follow a kind of grammar. Certain characters appear more frequently at the beginnings of words, while others prefer the ends, just like in real languages. There is a rhythm and a predictability to how words are formed and repeated, a pattern known as Zipf's law, which is a hallmark of authentic human communication. This statistical fingerprint is what keeps many researchers hopeful that the manuscript is not a hoax, but a record of a real lost tongue. Yet, this is where the paradox deepens. For every rule of a real language it seems to follow, it breaks another, more fundamental one. The vocabulary is astonishingly small. While a typical language has tens of thousands of words, the Voynich Manuscript uses its strange words with maddening repetition. Some words appear dozens of times on a single page, a pattern unheard of in any meaningful text. Even more bizarre is the way words are constructed. They seem to be built from a handful of root characters, shuffled and reshuffled with very little variation. It is as if someone invented a small set of linguistic Lego bricks and kept assembling them in slightly different orders. This gives the text a superficial feel of language, but upon closer inspection, it lacks the rich, chaotic diversity of true speech or prose. So we are left standing before a profound contradiction. The text possesses the statistical ghost of a language, a convincing echo of structure, but its actual content feels sterile, repetitive, and somehow hollow. Is this the artifact of a language so unique it operates by rules we cannot yet perceive? Or is it the brilliant, painstaking creation of a forger who understood just enough about the patterns of language to build a beautiful, meaningless shell? These botanical drawings are perhaps the most visually arresting part of the entire manuscript. Page after page is filled with vibrant illustrations of flora that seem to belong to a world just beyond our own. Each plant is rendered with meticulous scientific precision. You can see the delicate veins on the leaves, the fine textures of the stems, and the subtle shading on the roots, all captured with the care of a naturalist documenting a real specimen. Yet, not a single one of these plants has ever been found in any forest, any meadow, or any botanical archive on Earth. This is not a simple case of artistic license or a medieval artist drawing a plant they had only heard described. These are systematic, detailed portraits of the impossible. Some plants are composite creatures, grafting the leaf of one known species onto the root system of another, but with anatomical features that could never connect in reality. Others are wholly invented, displaying leaves that coil into perfect mathematical spirals, or flowers whose petals form intricate, labyrinthine patterns more akin to architecture than biology. One famous illustration shows a plant with a thick, blue root that appears to be made of interlocking, polished stones. Another depicts a flower with a central pod that looks like a tiny, multifaceted eye staring back at the viewer. The very soil the plants grow from is sometimes shown as a strange, granular substance, unlike ordinary dirt. This level of consistent, deliberate strangeness forces a difficult question. Why would anyone invest such immense effort into documenting a fantasy? If this is an imaginary herbal, it is one created with a purpose that goes far beyond mere whimsy. The detail suggests a reference work, a practical guide to something the author believed was real and important. This has led to some of the most enduring theories about the manuscript's origin. Could these be depictions of plants from a lost continent or even from another world? Or are they symbolic representations where each impossible leaf and root encodes a piece of alchemical or spiritual knowledge? The plants do not merely defy identification. They challenge our very understanding of what a book like this was meant to do. They are beautiful, unsettling, and they stand as a silent, flourishing forest of questions. Just as the botanical section defies nature, the astrological pages twist the cosmos into something unrecognizable. Here, the manuscript presents a series of intricate circular diagrams, like maps of the heavens drawn by someone who had only heard the stars described in a dream. At first glance, they feel familiar. You can clearly see the symbols of the zodiac, the same ones used in Western astrology for centuries. There are illustrations of Taurus the bull, Sagittarius the archer, and Pisces the fish, arranged in their traditional order around the edge of these great wheels. But the moment you look closer, the familiarity shatters. Each zodiac sign is not merely a symbol. It is placed at the center of a complex, radiating structure, surrounded by concentric rings packed with tiny, unreadable text and populated by dozens of miniature nude female figures. These women are not simply decorations. They are integrated into the diagram's machinery, each one holding a star or positioned at the end of a spoke, as if they are celestial bodies themselves. The entire system feels less like a chart for predicting planetary movements and more like a schematic for a cosmic engine powered by these human forms. This bizarre fusion of the known and the unknown is where researchers saw a potential key to dating the entire book. The logic was simple. If these are genuine, though stylized, zodiac diagrams, then the specific arrangement of the stars and the figures might correspond to a real astronomical configuration from a specific year. Scholars meticulously studied the positions, counting the figures in each sector and comparing them to historical star charts. The most promising lead pointed to the early 15th century, with some analyses suggesting a date around 1404. This was a tantalizing clue, seemingly pinning the manuscript's creation to a specific moment in time, long before it appeared in Emperor Rudolf's court. Yet, even this potential breakthrough is shrouded in doubt. The correspondences are not perfect. The diagrams are too strange, too symbolic to align neatly with any single, verifiable night sky. They might represent an idealized cosmology, an alchemical concept of the universe, or a purely invented astral geography, so we are left with a haunting possibility. The manuscript gives us a tool that should unlock one of its greatest secrets, a calendar written in the stars. But the clock it shows us is telling a time that does not exist in our world. Perhaps the most intimate and perplexing pages are those filled with the figures of nude women. They are often called nymphs, but they are not depicted in a classical, artistic sense. These women are drawn with a stark, diagrammatic clarity, their bodies integrated into a sprawling network of pipes, barrels, and vessels filled with a greenish-blue fluid. Some stand in what appear to be communal baths, while others are connected individually to this strange plumbing, the tubes snaking from one container to another, often converging into a central pool or reservoir. The feeling is not one of leisurely bathing, but of a biological or chemical process. It is as if the human body itself is being treated as a piece of laboratory equipment. This section is so unique that scholars have given it a name, balneology, the study of baths, though the baths shown here are like none ever built. So what is this system meant to represent? One compelling theory views these pages as a metaphorical depiction of human physiology. The interconnected tubes could be an attempt to illustrate the circulatory system or the flow of vital fluids through the body, a concept that would have been radical for its time. The green fluid might represent blood, bile, or some other essential humor, with the entire network charting a process of cleansing, transformation, or healing. Another, more esoteric interpretation places these illustrations firmly in the world of alchemy. In alchemical traditions, the pursuit of the philosopher's stone was not just about transmuting lead into gold. It was a spiritual journey, often symbolized by a series of chemical processes. The bathing figures could represent the raw materials of the work, being purified and transformed in the alchemical vessel. The women, then, are not people but symbols of primal matter undergoing a mystical change. Their nudity signifies a state of purity and nature unadorned, while the intricate plumbing represents the sealed apparatus of the alchemist's laboratory. Could this entire section be a coded recipe for an alchemical operation, where the human form is used to represent chemical elements and processes? Yet for every theory, a question remains. Why are the women so numerous and so specifically arranged? Why does the system of pipes look both organic and engineered? These pages refuse to settle into a single, comfortable explanation. They present a vision that is at once biological and spiritual, mechanical and mystical, leaving us to wonder if we are looking at a lost science of the body or a profound map of the soul's journey. Scattered throughout the manuscript are pages that feel like they were torn from an apothecary's private recipe book. Here, the focus shifts from entire impossible plants to their individual, potent components. You see isolated roots, carefully excavated leaves, and meticulously dissected flowers, each drawn with the same precise detail as the full plants. But these botanical parts are not presented alone. They are consistently paired with neat rows of apothecary jars, drawn in a style any medieval pharmacist would recognize. Some jars are simple and bulbous, while others are tall and ornate, each one seemingly intended for a specific purpose. This direct visual association is one of the most compelling clues to the book's potential use. It strongly suggests that these fantastical plants were not just objects of study. They were meant to be ingredients. The illustrations imply a process, a series of steps where a specific root or leaf is selected, prepared, and stored in its designated vessel. This transforms the mystery from a purely intellectual puzzle into a practical one. What kind of medicine were these recipes meant to create? Could the green fluid flowing through the bathing women be a distillation of these very plants, a potent elixir brewed from a forgotten botany? The jars are not merely decorative, they are functional symbols pointing toward a world of alchemical pharmacy where the boundaries between science, magic, and medicine were completely blurred. An alchemist of the era would not have seen a contradiction in using an unidentifiable plant to create a cure. For them, the power might have resided in the plant's symbolic form, its astrological correspondence, or a secret property known only to the initiated. Perhaps the text we cannot read is not a language in the conventional sense, but a coded set of instructions. Measurements, brewing times, planetary alignments for harvesting, all concealed within this unique script to protect a valuable, perhaps dangerous formulary. This section makes the manuscript feel less like a theoretical treatise and more like a working manual, its secrets locked away not just by code, but by our own lost understanding of the world it describes. For centuries, the world's finest minds have tried to force the Voynich Manuscript to surrender its secrets. Each new champion of code breaking, armed with the latest tools of their era, approached the book with confidence, only to be defeated by its elegant, silent script. The first major assault in the modern age was led by William Friedman, the brilliant American cryptographer who had famously broken Japan's purple cipher during World War II. After the war, he gathered a team of the best code breakers, convinced that the same methods that unraveled enemy communications could conquer this ancient puzzle. They subjected the text to every statistical test they could devise, searching for the telltale fingerprints of a cipher, but the manuscript yielded nothing. Friedman and his team were forced to conclude that if it was a code, it was unlike any the world had ever seen, a system so complex it might have been deliberately designed to be unbreakable. This was the first great modern failure, and it set a somber precedent. If the man who helped win a war could not read this book, then who could? Decades later, a professor named Robert Brumbaugh proposed a different kind of key. He theorized the script was not a language at all, but a complex astrological code where each character corresponded to a number, a planet, or an herb. According to his theory, the words were not meant to be read but calculated, forming a kind of medieval spreadsheet for creating personalized horoscopes or alchemical recipes. It was a creative and intriguing idea, but it ultimately failed to produce a consistent translation. The manuscript resisted being forced into such a rigid numerical box. Then came the explosive claim from a physicist named Leo Levertov. He declared the manuscript was written in a rare medieval Dutch dialect and was a liturgical text for a religious sect called the Cathars. He argued the bathing women depicted a heretical ritual of Indura, a form of suicide by starvation. His theory was dramatic and captured the public imagination, but it quickly fell apart under scholarly scrutiny. Linguists could find no correlation between the manuscript's text and any known Dutch dialect, and historians pointed out that the Cathar ritual did not match the illustrations at all. It was a classic case of seeing a pattern so desperately that you force the pieces to fit. The most recent and technologically advanced attempts have come from artificial intelligence. Researchers have fed the entire text into sophisticated algorithms designed to detect linguistic patterns and identify the underlying language. One prominent study suggested the script might be encoded Hebrew with the letters systematically shuffled. The algorithm produced a few fragmented, seemingly sensible phrases like recommendations for a farmer concerning a field, but these results were far from a coherent translation. They were isolated islands of meaning in a vast sea of gibberish, and no one has been able to replicate or build upon this method to unlock the entire text. The history of Voynich decipherment is a graveyard of elegant theories. Each new idea, from complex ciphers to lost languages to alien alphabets, rises with hope and then crumbles under the weight of the manuscript's immutable silence. This relentless failure forces a painful question. Are we still missing the one crucial key that will swing the door wide open, or have we been knocking on the wrong door for 600 years? Perhaps the most humbling explanation is that the manuscript is nothing but an elaborate fraud. What if this entire beautiful, baffling book was designed from the start to be meaningless? This is the hoax theory, and it presents a compelling case that we have been chasing a phantom for centuries. The argument centers on motive and means. Emperor Rudolf II was famously obsessed with the occult and was known to pay vast sums for rare manuscripts promising secret knowledge. A clever forger would have seen him as the perfect target. The manuscript could have been an incredibly sophisticated con, crafted to look like a priceless book of secrets, its very impenetrability used as proof of its power. For a long time, this theory was just an accusation without a method. How could a single person or a small team possibly create over 200 pages of text that so perfectly mimicked the statistical patterns of a real language? The answer, according to computer scientist Gordon Rugg, is deceptively simple. He demonstrated that you do not need to be a linguistic genius to create a convincing pseudo-language. You only need a simple tool and a lot of patience. Rugg's method involves something called a card and grill, a table of word fragments and a set of overlays with holes cut into them. Imagine a grid filled with prefixes, roots, and suffixes that are common in many languages. By placing a grill over this grid, you can see only a few of these fragments at a time. You then copy down the visible fragments to form a word. By moving the grill slightly, you select a new combination, forming another word. This process, repeated over and over, can generate vast quantities of text that look structured and grammatical. The words will have a limited vocabulary because they are built from the same small set of fragments. They will show statistical patterns because you are using rules to combine them. Yet the final text is complete gibberish, devoid of any intended meaning. It is a language-like structure built by a machine, not a mind. Rugg and his team successfully used this technique to produce text that shared many of the bizarre linguistic properties found in the Voynich Manuscript. This proved for the first time that a single individual working in the 16th century could have created the entire thing without any advanced knowledge of cryptography. The hoax theory forces us to confront a deeply unsettling possibility. The reason no one has ever deciphered the Voynich Manuscript is not because the code is too brilliant, but because there is no code to break. We have been pouring our intellect into analyzing an empty vessel, projecting our desire for meaning onto a beautiful, masterful forgery. The real secret of the Voynich Manuscript might be the very human capacity for deception and our own endless need to believe. But what if the manuscript's strange patterns are not a deception, but a message from a world we have simply forgotten? This possibility leads us to the natural language hypothesis, the idea that the text is written in a real, but lost or exceptionally rare human tongue. Imagine a language so isolated that it developed its own unique grammar and vocabulary, spoken by a small community that vanished without a trace. The manuscript could be its only surviving record, a linguistic fossil waiting for the right key to awaken its meaning. Some researchers have looked toward East Asia for clues. They point out that the script structure, with its repetitive, syllable-like words, bears a faint resemblance to languages like Chinese or Vietnamese, which can express complex ideas with short, monosyllabic words. The idea is compelling, but it hits a formidable wall. No known Asian language, living or dead, aligns with the specific character set and word structures found in the Voynich pages. The text defies easy categorization, refusing to fit neatly into any established linguistic family. Another fascinating proposal is that the manuscript is written in a constructed language. This would not be a code, but a fully formed, artificial tongue created from scratch by its author. The concept was not unknown in medieval Europe. Philosophers and mystics sometimes attempted to create perfect, logical languages, believing that the confusion of human speech after the fall of the Tower of Babel could be overcome by a new, rational form of communication. Such a language would have its own internal logic and grammar, designed to express ideas with perfect clarity. If the Voynich Manuscript is written in one of these private languages, the reason no one has deciphered it is simple. The only dictionary, the only grammar book, was in the mind of its creator. Without that original key, we are trying to solve a puzzle where the rules themselves are part of the mystery. The greatest challenge for the natural language theory is the manuscript's bizarre vocabulary. In any real language, even a rare one, you expect to find a rich diversity of words. Yet the Voynich text relies on a shockingly small set of terms used over and over. This is not how people write meaningful prose. It is more like someone using a limited set of building blocks to create the illusion of language. So we are caught between two powerful yet flawed ideas. Is it a lost tongue, its richness hidden by our own ignorance, or a brilliant artificial language whose creator took its grammar to the grave? Both paths lead to the same frustrating destination, a door we can see clearly but still cannot open. This persistent failure to find a real language leads us back to the cipher theory. Perhaps the words are not words at all, but a clever disguise. The idea is simple and elegant. The author wrote a perfectly ordinary message in a known language like Latin or Italian, and then systematically replaced every single letter with a unique symbol from his invented alphabet. This is a substitution cipher, the oldest trick in the Book of Secrets. If this were the case, cracking the manuscript should be trivial for modern computers. They could analyze the frequency of each strange character, match it to the most common letters in the suspected language, and watch the message unfold. But this has been tried countless times, and it never works. The text that emerges is pure nonsense. This tells us that if it is a cipher, it is far more sophisticated than a simple one-to-one swap. The next level of complexity is a homophonic cipher. In this system, a single letter from the original message can be represented by several different symbols. For example, the common letter E might be written with 5 different Voynich characters chosen at random by the writer. This cleverly flattens the letter frequency, destroying the statistical clues that code breakers rely on. This would explain why the text has the overall structure of a language, but resists every basic frequency attack. Yet, even this advanced method has a weakness. While it hides individual letters, it cannot hide the patterns of words. Common short words like the or, and, or common word endings would still leave a trace. Researchers have searched for these patterns, these tiny fingerprints of grammar within the Voynich text. They have found hints, but nothing consistent enough to build a translation upon. The manuscript seems to anticipate and defy every conventional code-breaking technique. This has led to even more radical cipher theories. Maybe it is a cipher within a cipher. The text we see could be the second layer of encryption, the result of a simple cipher that was then deliberately misspelled or shuffled according to a second, separate set of rules. Some propose the script is shorthand, a personal system of glyphs where a single character represents an entire syllable or word. Others suggest it is a visual cipher, where the shape of each character itself encodes information, like the angle of a line indicating a number. The problem with all these brilliant, complex theories is that they require a key. Without that single sheet of parchment explaining the rules, the system is virtually unbreakable. We are left staring at a locked box surrounded by thousands of potential keys, with no way of knowing which one the creator used 600 years ago. The cipher theory offers a tantalizing promise of a real message hidden just beneath the surface, but it also presents a terrifying possibility. What if the key was never written down? What if it existed only in the mind of one person and was lost to time forever? There is another door we have not yet tried, one that involves not breaking a code but learning to see past it entirely. This is the theory of steganography, the art of concealing a message within another message, of hiding a secret in plain sight. What if the strange, repetitive text of the Voynich manuscript is not the message itself but merely the carrier? The true meaning could be woven into the very fabric of the book, waiting not for a linguist but for a detective with a different kind of vision. Imagine receiving a seemingly normal letter from a friend. The sentences are a little odd and repetitive, but they form coherent thoughts. Now, imagine you are told that the real message is not in the words, but in the first letter of every line, spelling out a hidden sentence. This technique, known as an acrostic, was well known in the medieval period. Could the Voynich author have used a similar method, where the initial characters of each paragraph, or the reddened, larger letters sometimes seen, form a separate, coherent text that we have missed because we were staring at the forest instead of the uniquely marked trees? The sheer volume of the manuscript would make this a monumental task to check by hand, but for a creator determined to protect a priceless secret, no effort would be too great. An even more radical idea suggests the text itself is a complete decoy. According to this view, the true knowledge is not in the writing at all, but in the illustrations. The bizarre plants, the astrological wheels, the bathing women, and the apothecary jars could form a complete symbolic system, a visual language that communicates everything one needs to know. The unreadable text would then be filler, an elaborate smokescreen designed to distract rival scholars and lend the volume an air of profound mystery, while the actual recipe for an alchemical elixir or the map to a spiritual truth is drawn clearly on the page for those with the eyes to see it. Think of a children's puzzle book where you are told to follow the dotted line. The Voynich Manuscript might be the ultimate version of that puzzle, where you must trace a path through the interconnected pipes in the balneological section, or count the specific number of petals on an impossible flower to derive a numerical key. Some researchers have even proposed that minuscule, microscopic writing is hidden within the larger script or the illustrations, a technique that would require a magnifying lens to detect an object that did exist in the author's time. This theory forces a complete shift in perspective. For centuries, we have assumed the text is the star of the show and the pictures are its supporting cast. But what if we have it backwards? What if the words are the background noise and the illustrations are the entire signal? The secret of the Voynich Manuscript may not be locked away. It may be staring back at us from every beautifully illustrated page, patiently waiting for us to stop reading and simply start seeing. The manuscript script might not be a code at all, but a lone voice speaking a forgotten tongue. This is the cultural and linguistic isolate theory, a haunting possibility that the book is the last surviving relic of an entire people. Imagine a small, isolated community, perhaps on a remote island or in a secluded valley, developing a language and a culture completely cut off from the rest of the world. For generations, their knowledge, their botany, and their view of the cosmos would have evolved along a unique path, documented in their own unique script. Then a disaster strikes. It could have been disease, a volcanic eruption, or simply assimilation into a larger culture. The people vanish and their entire world is erased, leaving behind only this single, beautiful book as their tombstone. Without any other examples of their writing, without any dictionaries or grammatical guides, the Voynich Manuscript becomes a locked door with the key thrown into the depths of history. Deciphering it would be like trying to understand ancient Egyptian hieroglyphs without the Rosetta Stone. For over 1,000 years, those carved symbols were just mysterious pictures. Their meaning only became clear when archaeologists discovered a slab of black rock that presented the same text in 3 different scripts, including known Greek. This parallel text provided the crucial key. The Voynich Manuscript offers no such gift. There is no second column with a translation into Latin. There are no marginal notes in a known hand. It stands utterly alone. The reason every statistical test and linguistic model fails might be because we have no baseline for comparison. We are trying to map the grammar of this text onto languages like Latin or Hebrew, but its true structure could be as different from them as English is from a dolphin song. Its small, repetitive vocabulary might reflect the limited needs of that specific culture, focused entirely on their unique plants, their specific rituals, and their isolated world. The bizarre illustrations are not allegories or codes then, but literal depictions of their reality. Those impossible plants were the local flora they used for medicine. The strange star charts were the actual night sky as they recorded it. The bathing women were part of a real, communal therapeutic practice. The book makes perfect, rational sense, but only within the context of a world that has completely disappeared. This theory transforms the manuscript from a deliberate puzzle into a profound tragedy. It is not hiding its secrets, it is simply speaking in a language that has no living ears to hear it. The ultimate barrier to understanding the Voynich Manuscript may not be its complexity, but the utter silence that now surrounds its solitary voice. A wave of excitement swept through the world of ancient mysteries in 2017. A researcher and historian named Nicholas Gibbs announced in the Times literary supplement that he had finally done it. He had cracked the Voynich code. His theory was not just a minor adjustment to an old idea. It was a complete and startling reinterpretation of the book's purpose. Gibbs claimed the Voynich Manuscript was not a work of occult science or a lost language. It was something far more practical, a women's health manual largely copied from existing sources. He argued that the text was not an unknown alphabet at all, but a series of common Latin abbreviations. These abbreviations, he said, were used in medieval medical texts as a kind of shorthand for standard terms and phrases. For example, he interpreted a common Voynich character pair as the abbreviation for the Latin word adjustum, meaning of the same. This would make the text a series of repetitive, formulaic instructions, much like a modern doctor might write "take 2 tablets daily." His interpretation of the illustrations followed logically from this premise. The bizarre plants were not alien flora, but stylized versions of common herbs like lavender and valerian, misidentified because the artist was copying from other books without full understanding. The now famous bathing women were not part of an alchemical system, but were simply depicting the various water therapies and baths commonly prescribed for gynecological issues in the medieval period. The entire manuscript, in his view, was a compilation, a plagiarized home reference guide for women's medicine. For a brief, electrifying moment, it seemed the 600-year mystery was over. The solution was so mundane, so ordinary, that it felt almost anticlimactic, yet perfectly plausible. But that moment was incredibly short-lived. The academic and cryptographic communities responded not with celebration, but with a swift and devastating rebuttal. Experts pointed out a fatal flaw in Gibbs's methodology. He had not provided a full translation. He had only pointed to a handful of characters and proposed their Latin equivalents, then extrapolated that the entire manuscript must follow the same pattern. When other scholars attempted to apply his system to other pages, it produced nothing but gibberish. The abbreviations did not form coherent sentences. They did not follow the grammatical rules of Latin, nor did they match the known structure of medieval medical recipes. The statistical properties of the text, which so closely mimic a natural language, could not be explained by a simple list of abbreviated phrases. The reaction was a unanimous rejection. One professor called the theory completely unsubstantiated. Another stated that Gibbs had simply seen what he wanted to see, fitting a few puzzle pieces into a predetermined picture while ignoring the thousands of others that did not fit. The Nicholas Gibbs episode became a classic case study in Voynich research, a cautionary tale about the difference between a promising hypothesis and a proven solution. It demonstrated the immense gravitational pull of this mystery, how it tempts us to believe we have found the answer, only to reveal that we are still standing at the very edge of understanding. The world of cryptography held its breath once more, this time for the arrival of a new kind of code breaker. In 2019, computer scientists Greg Kondrak and Bradley Hauer turned the formidable power of artificial intelligence toward the ancient manuscript. Their approach was rooted in a simple, powerful assumption. If the text was a cipher, its underlying structure must still belong to a human language. Their algorithm was not designed to translate but to identify. It scanned the Voynich text, analyzing its statistical properties and comparing them against the known patterns of hundreds of languages from around the world. The result was as startling as it was specific. The system proposed with high confidence that the underlying language was Hebrew. This was not a vague hunch. It was a computational verdict. The algorithm suggested the author had used a simple but clever encryption method, taking the original Hebrew words and systematically shuffling the letters while removing all the vowels. This process, known as an alphagram, would turn a readable word into a string of consonants, which the author then wrote out using his invented Voynich alphabet. To prove their theory, Kondrak and Hauer attempted a translation of the manuscript's first line. The algorithm produced a phrase that seemed to make sense, something about a farmer making a recommendation to a priest. For a moment, it appeared that artificial intelligence had finally succeeded where generations of human genius had failed. The 600-year-old wall seemed to have a crack. Yet, the initial excitement soon met the hard reality of scholarly scrutiny. The translation of that first line was the high point. When other researchers applied the same method to subsequent sentences, the results collapsed into incoherence. The phrases that emerged were fragmented, grammatically awkward, and failed to build into any kind of consistent narrative. Critics argued that the algorithm had likely found a statistical fluke, a chance resemblance between the Voynich script's patterns and those of Hebrew, rather than a true linguistic match. The deeper problem was one of context. Even if the method was technically correct, the proposed translations felt completely disconnected from the vivid and bizarre illustrations on the same pages. Why would a text about farmers and priests be filled with diagrams of celestial wheels and networks of bathing women? The disconnect was too great to ignore. This highlights the fundamental limitation of a purely computational approach. An algorithm can find patterns, but it cannot understand meaning. It can suggest a language, but it cannot interpret the cultural or symbolic context that gives words their true purpose. The work of Kondrak and Hauer stands as a powerful landmark in the long quest, a demonstration of how far technology can take us. But it also serves as a humbling reminder that some doors may require a human key, a spark of intuition that no machine can yet replicate. Another bold claim emerged from the academic fringe, promising to rewrite linguistic history. In 2020, independent researcher Gerard Cheshire announced a solution that was as simple as it was revolutionary. He argued that the Voynich manuscript was not written in a complex cipher or a lost Asian tongue, but in a language he called Proto-Romance. This, according to Cheshire, was the everyday spoken language of common people around the Mediterranean during the late Roman Empire, a direct ancestor of modern Italian, Spanish, and French. He proposed the script itself was not invented, but was a forgotten system of writing that used familiar Latin letters in a cursive, connected style that simply looked alien to modern eyes. His translation process seemed to unlock the text with startling clarity. He pointed to specific, repeated phrases. One common Voynich word, he claimed, translated directly to the Latin word for ointment. Another sequence of characters, he asserted, spelled out a sweet almond drink, a plausible ingredient in a medieval remedy. The bathing women, in his view, were not mystical symbols but illustrations of historical therapeutic practices, and the plants were common Mediterranean herbs, their strange appearances the result of artistic misinterpretation over centuries of copying. For a brief moment, it felt like a perfect fit, a key sliding smoothly into a lock that had resisted every other attempt. The manuscript was demystified into a practical guide to women's health and herbalism, its mystery solved not by complex algorithms, but by recognizing a script everyone had overlooked. The scholarly community, however, responded not with applause but with a wave of profound skepticism. Linguists and medieval historians quickly dismantled the very foundation of Cheshire's theory. The primary criticism was his concept of proto-romance itself. Experts argued that there is no historical evidence for a unified, written proto-romance language existing as Cheshire described. The vernacular languages that developed from Latin were regional and diverse, never standardized into a single written form with its own unique script. His proposed alphabet was also rejected. Other scholars attempted to apply his character mappings and found they could not produce consistent, grammatically correct Latin or any other known Romance language across the manuscript's pages. The seemingly clear translations he presented were dismissed as cherry-picking, where a few words could be forced into meaning while ignoring the vast majority of the text that remained incoherent under his system. The entire academic establishment seemed to speak with one voice, labeling the proto-romance theory as linguistically unsound and historically unsubstantiated. This intense pushback highlights a deeper tension in the quest to understand the Voynich manuscript. We are drawn to elegant, simple solutions, but the book itself seems to demand a complexity that defies them. Each proposed key feels right in our hands until we try to turn it and find the lock is built from a different substance entirely. The relentless search for meaning continues, with new theories blooming like the manuscript's own impossible plants. One of the most recent and technically ambitious efforts comes from the world of applied mathematics. In 2023, a researcher named Stephen Bax, who had previously worked on the manuscript, saw his legacy advanced by scholar Keegan Brewer. Their method focused on the idea of a verbose cipher, a system where a single letter from the original plaintext is expanded into an entire Voynich word. Imagine writing the word cat, but instead of using 3 letters, you use 3 whole Voynich words to represent the C, the A, and the T. This would explain the manuscript's strange word repetition and its overall length. Brewer, building on statistical models, suggested the underlying language could be a form of abbreviated Latin. Yet, like so many before it, this promising mathematical key has not yet yielded a full translation, leaving the door only slightly ajar. In the vibrant, often chaotic world of online forums, a different kind of decipherment is taking place. Amateur sleuths and hobbyist linguists, armed with digital scans and collaborative software, are proposing solutions that academia often ignores. One popular fringe theory posits that the manuscript is a visual anagram. Proponents suggest that the text is not meant to be read left to right, but that the individual characters should be cut out, rearranged, and overlapped to form images or words from a known language. Another persistent online idea claims the book is a liturgical text for a small, extinct Christian sect, with the bathing women representing souls being purified in a spiritual journey. These digital detectives operate with a freedom that formal researchers lack, often finding patterns that are creatively compelling but scientifically unverifiable. Their work is a testament to the manuscript's enduring power to inspire, even when proof remains elusive. The most sobering development in recent years is not a new theory, but a new perspective on an old one. The hoax hypothesis, once seen as a cynical last resort, is gaining ground as each new hopeful solution crumbles. Scholars like René Zandbergen, a leading Voynich researcher, now openly question whether we are witnessing a centuries-long wild goose chase. They argue that the manuscript's perfect resistance to every form of analysis, from human genius to artificial intelligence, is itself the most powerful evidence for its emptiness. It is the ultimate cold case, a beautiful artifact that may have been designed from the start to be a question without an answer. So where does this leave us today? The field is divided between a handful of academic holdouts refining complex cipher models, a bustling community of online enthusiasts chasing intuitive leaps, and a growing chorus of realists who believe the greatest secret the Voynich holds is a lesson in our own capacity for wonder and self-deception. After 600 years, the book's silence is louder than ever. For centuries, the manuscript's age was just another layer of speculation. Then science delivered a definitive answer. In 2009, a team of researchers performed a radiocarbon analysis on tiny samples of the vellum, carefully taken from 4 different pages. This process measures the steady decay of radioactive carbon in organic material, providing a reliable window into the past. The results were unequivocal. The parchment was dated to between 1404 and 1438. This single finding anchored the mysterious book firmly in the early 15th century, a crucial piece of hard evidence in a sea of theories. That date immediately dismantled 2 of the most popular historical attributions. The manuscript could not have been the work of the 13th century friar Roger Bacon, a theory that had captivated Emperor Rudolf II. It also definitively ruled out any connection to Leonardo da Vinci, who was not even born until 1452. The Voynich manuscript was a genuine medieval artifact created by an unknown hand in a world of alchemy, early science, and profound secrecy. This confirmation, however, did not simplify the mystery, it only deepened it. Now we knew for certain that this was not a later forgery. A real person in the early 1400s invested an immense amount of time and skill to create this book. They prepared the vellum, mixed the inks, and drew every impossible plant and celestial diagram with deliberate care. They filled over 200 pages with a script that has resisted every modern attempt to read it. The radiocarbon date gives us a when, but it makes the who and the why even more compelling. Who was this person working 600 years ago who could produce something so systematically bizarre? And what knowledge or what deception was so important that it required the creation of an entire language to contain it? The vellum provided a solid timeline, but the words and images themselves needed their own investigation. What if the text was added centuries later as part of an elaborate forgery? To answer this, scientists turned their attention to the very substance of the writing, the inks and vibrant paints that bring the strange world of the manuscript to life. Through sophisticated chemical analysis, they examined the elemental composition of the pigments. The results were clear and consistent. The blue hues were derived from azurite, a mineral commonly used before the widespread adoption of ultramarine. The reds were identified as red lead, and the whites were made from crushed bone, all materials perfectly aligned with a 15th century European palette. There is no trace of modern synthetic dyes or anachronistic components. Even the carbon-based black ink used for the script is of a type wholly consistent with the iron gall or carbon inks available to a medieval scribe. This analysis does more than just confirm a date. It reveals a single, continuous act of creation. The inks show no chemical variation that would suggest different batches or different time periods. The same hand or the same workshop that prepared the parchment also mixed these specific pigments and applied them to the page. There is no evidence of scraping, no signs of later overwriting, and no ghostly traces of a different underlying text. Every impossible plant, every mysterious bathing figure, and every line of unreadable script was put down in that same period, between 1404 and 1438. This scientific verdict adds a profound layer of authenticity to the enigma. We are not looking at a clever modern fake or a later addition to an old blank book. We are witnessing a complete, original artifact, a unified vision from start to finish. This confirmation deepens the mystery exponentially. It means that 600 years ago, someone possessed not only the skill to create this beautiful object, but also a powerful, urgent reason to fill it with a secret so profound that its language had to be invented from scratch. The silence of the Voynich manuscript is not an accident of time. It was the author's original and apparently successful intention. The Voynich manuscript's mystery has long escaped the confines of academia and vaulted directly into our collective imagination. It has become more than a historical artifact. It is now a modern cultural icon, a symbol of the ultimate unsolved puzzle. This transformation is visible everywhere you look in popular entertainment. In the blockbuster video game series Assassin's Creed, a franchise built on weaving secret histories into real-world events, the manuscript appears as a powerful artifact sought by both assassins and Templars. Its pages are depicted as holding the key to forgotten knowledge, directly tying its enigma to narratives of conspiracy and ancient power. This is not a casual reference, it is a recognition that the Voynich represents the very essence of a tantalizing hidden truth. The manuscript's allure has also proven irresistible to novelists. In Lev Grossman's novel Codex, the discovery of a mysterious medieval manuscript, heavily inspired by the Voynich, sets off a dangerous literary treasure hunt. The book becomes a character in itself, a silent, beautiful antagonist that dares the protagonists to solve it. This fictional treatment captures the real-life obsession the Voynich inspires, that burning desire to be the one person who finally understands what everyone else has missed. Television shows, from dramas to documentaries, repeatedly turn their cameras toward this cryptic book, framing it as the holy grail of codes. Its very image, with those strange plants and unreadable text, has become visual shorthand for impenetrable mystery and ancient secrets. Why does this particular object, above all others, hold such power over us? Perhaps because in a world where we can access almost any information instantly, the Voynich Manuscript remains gloriously, defiantly inaccessible. It is a reminder that some doors are still locked and that the greatest adventures might still be found in the pages of a book we cannot read. Its presence in our stories confirms its status not just as a cipher but as a legend. Every attempt to read this book runs into the same three walls. The first and most devastating problem is the absolute lack of a reference point. To decode any language or cipher, you need a starting block, a single known word to build from. When the Rosetta Stone was discovered, it provided the same text in 3 scripts, including known Greek. That was the key. The Voynich Manuscript offers no such gift. There is no parallel translation, no marginal notes in Latin, no second version with a known alphabet. It stands in perfect, solitary silence. Without that anchor, every statistical pattern and every linguistic guess is just a shot in the dark, floating in a sea of possibilities with no shore in sight. The second core problem is the terrifying possibility of a layered encryption. What if the solution is not a single key, but a series of them? Imagine an author who first wrote a message in a rare dialect. Then they enciphered it using a homophonic system where each letter could be represented by multiple symbols. Finally, they took that encrypted text and deliberately misspelled every word according to a third, arbitrary rule. This would create a cryptographic onion with layers upon layers, each one perfectly designed to frustrate the code breakers of any era. A modern computer could crack 1 layer, maybe even 2, but without knowing how many layers exist or the specific rules for each, the final, true message remains forever out of reach. This leads to the third and most humbling possibility, that we are searching for a pattern that simply is not there. The term for this is glossolalia, a seemingly structured but ultimately meaningless flow of writing. This is not the same as a deliberate hoax. Glossolalia can be an unconscious, almost trance-like state where the hand writes and the brain invents a pseudo-language on the spot, complete with its own internal rhythm and repetition. The author may have believed they were channeling divine knowledge or recording a spiritual vision, but the output was a personal, linguistic artifact that was never meant to be read by another soul. The text feels real because it came from a human mind, but it carries no external meaning beyond the act of its own creation. So we are left circling these 3 pillars, a trinity of frustration. Is the manuscript a real message waiting for a reference we have lost? Is it a vault sealed with a dozen different locks? Or is it the beautiful, empty echo of a single mind speaking in tongues to itself? Until one of these walls falls, the book's perfect silence will remain unbroken. This deep need to solve the Voynich puzzle is more than just curiosity. It is a fundamental part of how our minds work. We are hardwired for pattern recognition, a trait that kept our ancestors alive by spotting predators in the rustling grass or identifying edible plants. But this powerful instinct has a shadow side, a cognitive glitch known as apophenia. This is the tendency to perceive meaningful connections and patterns within random or meaningless data. It is why we see faces in the clouds or hear hidden messages when a record is played backward. The Voynich Manuscript, with its neatly arranged text and intricate illustrations, is a perfect canvas for this phenomenon. Our brains look at those rows of strange words and cannot accept that they might be noise. They insist on searching for a signal, for a language that must be there because it looks so deliberately formed. This relentless pursuit is driven by our profound discomfort with chaos. We crave order and narrative, a story that makes sense of the world. An unsolvable mystery like the Voynich represents a tear in the fabric of that order, a void that demands to be filled. Every new theory, from alchemical ciphers to lost languages, is an attempt to stitch that tear closed, to impose a satisfying story onto the silence. We would rather believe in a brilliant, complex hoax than accept that something so beautifully crafted could be ultimately meaningless. This is the psychological contract we have with the unknown. The Voynich Manuscript endures not in spite of its insolubility, but because of it. It offers us a perpetual question, a mirror reflecting our own endless capacity for wonder and the stories we tell ourselves when faced with the void. What does your own desire to see it solved say about the patterns you need to believe are there? So what would it actually take for a solution to be considered real? The announcement of a new Voynich theory is almost a yearly event, yet none have gained universal acceptance. The bar for proof is set extraordinarily high, and for good reason. A genuine decoding would need to meet several unyielding criteria that go far beyond a few translated words. First, the method must be repeatable. The solver cannot simply present a finished translation and say, "Trust me." They must provide the key, the complete set of rules that anyone else can follow. If the claim is that the text is in ciphered Latin, then the researcher must publish the full cipher key, the specific rules for letter substitution or shuffling, and demonstrate how it is applied. Another scholar, perhaps on the other side of the world, should then be able to take that exact key, apply it to any given page, and arrive at the same coherent translation. This repeatability is the bedrock of scientific acceptance, and no Voynich solution has ever provided it in a verifiable way. Second, the translation must be extensive and internally consistent. Finding a few phrases that seem to make sense is not enough. A true solution must translate large, continuous passages from multiple sections of the book and have them all form a logical narrative that fits the illustrations. If the botanical section is translated, it should describe the properties of the plants in a way that aligns with their bizarre appearances. If the balneological section is decoded, the text surrounding the bathing women should explain the process depicted in the pipes and barrels. The resulting text must read like a real document with consistent grammar, a flowing narrative, and no jarring contradictions from one page to the next. Finally, and this is perhaps the most powerful test, a true solution must be predictive. The translator should be able to use their method to make a verifiable statement about something not yet seen. For instance, they might state, based on my translation of this root, the next page should contain a diagram of a two-chambered vessel. Then, when we turn the page, that prediction is confirmed. Or they could correctly identify a partially damaged word or a faded character based on the context their translation provides. This ability to predict the manuscript's content would be the closest thing to a scientific proof possible, demonstrating that the solver is not just interpreting randomness, but has truly unlocked the system. Anything less is just another intriguing story in a 600-year collection of them. Centuries of brilliant minds and powerful technology have all failed to unlock a single, certain meaning from these pages. We have peeled back the layers of vellum with radiocarbon dating, analyzed the chemistry of its medieval inks, and subjected its script to the most sophisticated algorithms. We know exactly when it was made and what it is made of, yet its purpose remains as elusive as ever. We are left not with an answer, but with a gallery of compelling possibilities, each one a door that stubbornly refuses to open. Is it an elaborate Renaissance hoax, a beautiful construct of meaningless text designed to fool a wealthy patron? Is it the sole surviving record of a lost culture, its language and knowledge speaking to us from a silent void? Or is it a complex cipher, its key lost to history, guarding a secret its creator deemed too precious to share? After 600 years, we are not necessarily closer to a solution, but we are infinitely richer in questions. This relentless pursuit has revealed more about our own minds than about the book itself, exposing our deep need to find patterns and stories in the unknown. So we arrive at the final, most haunting question of all. What if the manuscript's true genius is not in the secret it contains, but in its perfect, unbreakable design? What if its purpose was, from the very beginning, to never be solved, to stand as an eternal monument to the mystery a single human hand can create? The Voynich Manuscript endures not as a puzzle to be finished, but as a conversation that never ends, What do you believe is locked within its pages? Share your own theory in the comments below.